HOA sent biker thugs to scare my wife. 3 minutes later, they were at my door begging me to stop. It started with a letter, a crisp, official-looking notice printed on thick HOA letterhead, stamped with a seal that looked like it belonged to a government agency rather than neighborhood association. It was addressed to my wife, Sarah, and it arrived on a Tuesday morning when I was out running errands. She was 8 months pregnant, her feet swollen, her back aching, and she was trying to enjoy the last quiet moments before our lives changed forever. The sun was filtering through the kitchen blinds, casting golden stripes across the countertop as she opened the envelope with one hand while stirring a bowl of pancake batter with the other. The letter said we were in violation, not for trash cans left out too long, not for parking in the wrong spot, not even for painting the front door a shade of blue they didn't approve of. No, this was about the landscaping. Specifically, the lavender bushes along our front walk. We regret to inform you, the letter read, that the current flora along your property line does not comply with the approved aesthetic standards as outlined in Section 7.3A of the Hillcrest Estates Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. The unauthorized use of non-native species and unapproved color palettes constitutes a violation. A fine of $250 has been assessed. Immediate remediation is required. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in escalated penalties, including liens and legal action. Sarah stared at the paper, her mouth slightly open. Lavender. Lavender was a problem. The same lavender she'd planted because it helped with her morning sickness. The same lavender that attracted butterflies and gave the front yard a soft, calming scent every time the wind blew. The same lavender that our daughter, due in less than 2 months, would probably love when she was old enough to toddle through the garden. She called me, her voice trembling. "Jake," she said, "they're fining us for the lavender." I didn't laugh. I didn't get angry. Not then. I just sighed because I'd seen this kind of thing before. I knew how these people operated. I'd spent 10 years overseas, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, working for a private defense contractor, embedded with reconnaissance units, training local forces, gathering intel. I dealt with warlords, corrupt officials, militias with more firepower than sense. But nothing prepared me for the petty tyranny of a suburban HOA president with a clipboard and a God complex. Her name was Delilah Monroe, president of the Hillcrest Estates Homeowners Association. 54 years old, dyed auburn hair pulled into a tight bun, wore pastel pantsuits like armor, and walked with the swagger of someone who believed she was enforcing the law rather than a set of bylaws written by board retirees in 1998. She lived in the biggest house on the block, a 2-story colonial with black shutters and a fountain that shot water 3 feet high, even though drought restrictions had been in place for 6 months. She was the kind of woman who sent 3 reminder letters for a $25 late fee, who called the city code enforcement on a neighbor because their kid left a basketball in the yard overnight, and who once got a family evicted because they hosted a backyard graduation party that went past 9:15 p.m. And now, she had a target on my wife. I told Sarah to calm down. I'd handle it. I'd write a polite letter, cite the fact that the lavender was low maintenance, drought-resistant, and non-invasive. I'd mention that it was planted before we even bought the house, and had been there for over a decade. I'd appeal to reason. But Delilah wasn't interested in reason. 2 days later, a second notice arrived. This one came with a photo. Our house circled in red, the lavender bushes circled in yellow. The fine had doubled to $500. A deadline. Remove by Friday at 5 p.m. or face immediate enforcement. I called the HOA board. No answer. I emailed. No reply. I showed up at their monthly meeting. Delilah sat at the head of the table like a queen on a throne, flanked by 2 sycophantic retirees who nodded at everything she said. When I stood to speak, she cut me off. "Mr. Callahan," she said, smirking, "your presence is noted, but violations are violations. We cannot make exceptions, even for special circumstances." She glanced at Sarah's belly. It wasn't subtle. That's when I knew. This wasn't about landscaping. This was about power, control, humiliation. And I made a silent promise. Right then, in that stuffy community center room, with fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and a dozen neighbors pretending not to watch. I would end her, but I didn't act. Not yet. I wanted proof. I wanted leverage. I wanted to make sure that when I struck, it would be surgical, undeniable, and irreversible. So I started watching. I installed a few discrete security cameras, not just on our property, but angled to capture the street, the sidewalks, the comings and goings of the HOA enforcers. I kept logs, dates, times, license plates. I recorded every interaction. I saved every email. I even got a drone, small, quiet, barely louder than a mosquito, and used it to map out the entire neighborhood, noting violations that Delilah was ignoring, like the Johnsons' unpermitted pool addition, like the Garcias' RV parked in their driveway for 6 months straight, like the fact that Delilah herself had added a second story to her house without board approval, and without a single permit. I compiled it all. Photos, permits, city records, violations, a full dossier on every major player in the HOA. But I saved the juiciest for Delilah, because it wasn't just about construction. It went deeper. I dug into the HOA's finances. Their annual reports were public record. I filed a FOIA request through a lawyer friend. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 5 years, the HOA had collected over $2.3 million in dues from 142 households. Standard assessment, $450 per month. That's $770,000 annually. But the budget for maintenance, landscaping, security, and administration? A little over $400,000. So where did the rest go? I followed the paper trail. Payments to a company called Summit Property Management, a shell corporation registered in Delaware, with a P.O. box and no physical address. Transfers from the HOA account to Summit, $850,000 over 5 years. For consulting services, landscaping oversight, and legal compliance. But Summit didn't exist. Not really. No employees. No office. No website. Just a bank account. And the sole signatory? Delilah Monroe. She wasn't just running the HOA. She was looting it. And she wasn't alone. The treasurer, a quiet man named Carl Whitmore, wasn't on it. So was a board secretary, a retired schoolteacher named Evelyn Cho. They funneled money through fake invoices, inflated contracts, and ghost vendors. They hired contractors at double the market rate, then split the difference. They charged the HOA for landscaping that was never done, security patrols that never happened, and insurance premiums that were paid directly into a private account. They were stealing from their own neighbors. And the worst part? They used the money to fund their own upgrades, Delilah's fountain, Carl's new Tesla, Evelyn's sunroom edition, all paid for with the dues of people who thought they were paying for streetlights and trash pickup. And she did. It was a Friday evening. I was grilling steaks on the back deck. Sarah sat in a lounge chair, bare feet up, reading a baby name book. The air was warm, the sky painted in oranges and pinks. Our dog, Max, a big, goofy German shepherd, was napping in the grass. Then I heard it. Engines. Loud. Growling. Like thunder rolling down the street. I stepped to the edge of the deck and looked toward the front of the house. 3 motorcycles pulled up. Big, black Harleys, chrome gleaming under the streetlights. The riders were massive. Over 6 feet, leather vests covered in patches, skulls, flames, the words Iron Reaper stitched across the back. Tattoos snaked up their necks. One had a scar that split his eyebrow. Another had a chain hanging from his belt like a weapon. They killed the engines and dismounted in slow motion like they were in a movie. No helmets. No hurry. Just swagger and menace. Sarah stood up, alarmed. "Jake!" I held up a hand. "Stay here." I walked around the side of the house, keeping Max close. The lead biker, tall, bald, with a thick beard and a snake tattoo curling around his throat, stepped forward. He didn't look at me. He looked at the lavender. "Nice flowers," he said, voice gravelly. "Pity if something happened to Em." I didn't respond. He turned to me. "You're Jake Callahan?" "Yeah." "Got a message from Delilah. She says you're not following the rules. She says you need to be reminded of your place. I cross my arms. And you're the reminder? He smirked. We're the start of it. You pull those plants. You pay the fine. You apologize at the next meeting. Or next time, we don't just talk. Sarah peered at the front door. Jake, what's going on? The biker turned. His eyes dropped to her belly. He grinned. Oh, look, the little HOA rebel's wife. Cute, real cute. Tell you what, do what Delilah says, and maybe we'll let the baby have a front yard to play in. That's when I moved. I didn't yell. I didn't charge. I just stepped forward, fast, smooth, like water over stone, and in one motion, I grabbed the front of his cut, the leather vest, twisted and slammed him into the side of his bike. He hit with a thud, stunned, before he could react. I swept his legs, dropped him to the ground, and pinned him with a knee to the chest. The other two went for their belts, probably knives or brass knuckles. I didn't give them the chance. Max lunged, barking like a demon, teeth bared. One biker stumbled back, tripping over the curb. The other pulled a pipe from his jacket. But I was already on him. A palm strike to the nose, a knee to the gut, and he was down, gasping. The first one tried to crawl away. I grabbed his ankle, yanked him back, and leaned down. Listen to me, I said, voice calm, cold. You don't know who you're working for. You don't know who I am. But you're going to walk back to your bikes, ride away, and tell Delilah that if she ever sends thugs near my family again, I won't just break your bones. I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. It was a live feed from my security system, showing all three of them on my lawn, me subduing them, Max snarling, time-stamped, saved to the cloud. And I've got all, I said. Assault, intimidation, threatening a pregnant woman. You want this on YouTube? On the news? Because I can make that happen in 10 seconds. The biker swallowed. We were just paid to scare you. By Delilah? He nodded. Yeah, $2,000 to send a message. Said you were a problem. I stood up. Get out. Now. And if you come back, I won't be so nice. They scrambled to their bikes, started the engines, and peeled out, tires screeching, smoke rising. I walked back to Sarah. She was pale, shaking. Are you okay? I asked. She nodded. But Jake, that was insane. They could have hurt you. They didn't know who they were dealing with, I said. But I wasn't done. That night, I uploaded the video. Not to YouTube. Not to Facebook. I sent it to every homeowner in Hillcrest Estates. All 142 of them. Subject line, what your HOA president hired. Then I attached the financial documents, the fake invoices, the shell company, the photos of unpermitted construction, the list of ignored violations, and a final note. Delilah Monroe is stealing from you. She hired criminals to intimidate my pregnant wife over lavender. If you want your money back, if you want justice, if you want to take back your neighborhood, meet me at the community center tomorrow at 7 p.m. Come armed with receipts, records, and courage. This ends now. Call to action. If you've ever been bullied by an HOA, harassed by a petty authority figure, or watched someone abuse power in your community, you're not alone. This isn't just about one corrupt president or a few thug bikers. This is about a system that allows ordinary people to become tyrants behind a shield of bylaws and bureaucracy. Right now, thousands of homeowners across the country are being fined, threatened, and intimidated for trivial violations, while HOA leaders pocket millions in secret. I'm not asking you to fight back with violence. I'm asking you to fight back with truth. Start today. Document everything. Save every letter, every email, every fine. Take photos. Record meetings. Check your state's laws on recording. Demand financial transparency. HOA budgets are public. Request them. Audit them. Look for shell companies, inflated contracts, and unauthorized payments. Unite your neighbors. You're stronger together. Hold a meeting. Share evidence. Vote out corrupt board members. Report fraud. If you find financial misconduct, contact your state's attorney general, the FBI, or HUD. White-collar crime in HOAs is a federal issue. Share your story. Use social media. Local news. Online forums. Shine a light on the abuse. This isn't just my fight. It's ours. And if we stay silent, nothing changes. Visit HOAJewsTakenOut.org to download a free toolkit. Sample letters, financial audit templates, legal resources, and step-by-step guides to reclaiming your rights. Because no one should live in fear of their own neighbors. The next evening, the community center was packed. I expected 10 people, maybe 20, but over 100 showed up. Families, seniors, young couples, even the Johnsons with their unpermitted pool. They came with folders, USB drives, printouts. Some had cameras. Others had lawyers. And in the front row, Delilah. She walked in late, flanked by Carl and Evelyn, her chin high, her posture rigid. She wore a navy pantsuit, pearls, and a fake smile. "Good evening, neighbors," she said, stepping to the podium. "I understand there's been some concerns, but I assure you, the HOA operates with full transparency and integrity. We're here to uphold standards, not to intimidate." I stood up, then explained this. I plugged in a USB drive. The screen behind me lit up video of the bikers, me pinning the leader, Max lunging, the threats, the confession. The room went silent. Then I played the financial records. The $850,000 to Summit Property Management, the forged signatures, the unapproved construction. People started murmuring, then shouting, "You stole from us? My dad paid for that security patrol. That never came. You fine me $300 for a bird feeder, but let yourself build a third bedroom?" Delilah turned red. "This is slander. He's tampering with records." I hit play on the audio file, the one where she said, "How easy it is to bleed these rubes dry." The room erupted. Carl tried to leave. Neighbors blocked the door. Evelyn started crying. And then sirens. 2 police cruisers pulled up outside, then a black SUV with federal plates. FBI. They walked in, badges out, led by a woman in a navy suit, Agent Reyes. "Delilah Monroe," she said, "you're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and hiring criminal associates to intimidate a protected individual, specifically a pregnant woman." The room exploded. Delilah screamed. Carl collapsed into a chair. Evelyn handed over a flash drive. She'd been keeping her own records, afraid for her safety. The FBI took them away in handcuffs. But it didn't end there. Within a week, news outlets picked up the story. HOA president hires biker gang to intimidate pregnant woman. Ex-soldier fights back. Exposes $850,000 fraud. It went national, then international. The state attorney general launched an investigation into HOAs across the region. Dozens of corrupt boards were dissolved. New transparency laws were proposed. And in Hillcrest Estates, we elected a new board. Open, accountable, run by neighbors, not tyrants. The lavender stayed. And when our daughter was born, Lila, named after the lavender that started all, we planted a whole garden in her honor. Purple, fragrant, wild. I still keep the footage. The video of the bikers begging. The audio of Delilah's confession. Not for revenge. For reminder. Power corrupts. But courage? Courage rebuilds. And if they come for you, stand your ground. Because sometimes all it takes is one person say, "No more." And sometimes that person is you. Visit HOAJewsTakenOut.org. Download the toolkit. Share your story. Fight back. The system only wins if we let it.